truth emerges. Political cow unveils the lies. Behind the screen, wisdom surges, lighting up hate with her eyes. In the shadows, secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, what political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing light. At every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Political cow, political cow. Political cow, political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Political cow, icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. And in her light, dark meets its
Hey, everybody. Excuse me. There we go. I'm in here now, finally. You'll have to excuse me if I need a moment here and there to cough. I've been having this lingering cough for a while now, but one second. All right. Hopefully I managed to mute it so you didn't have to listen to me cough there, but thanks for tuning in. Just had a few things I wanted to run through. It's interesting to me how many acceptance and concession speeches have happened in this election cycle. Kind of fun watching them all unfold. I think Kamala's had 3 of them now. And of course, we had the electoral votes be certified here in the last day, so Trump came out and gave a second one. I'm going to take a look at that here in a minute, but wanted to walk through a couple of interesting stories I found on Ground News. And if you want to take a look at the content that I've got up here, go to politicalcow.com. all of the stream notes that I have. Not too fancy, of course, but the links and stuff, I've got that listed in there in different posts. So take a look at that. Let me pull up. One sec. Let's work through this. Let me pull up the first one. So interestingly, I don't know what the deal is with Fetterman. If you guys have an idea, help me out with that. But he he keeps turning into free music, says Morrison. You're welcome to reuse this. It's not, I mean, the other one was my theme song, so not 100% free. Maybe free to me, but I don't know. Feel free to use it if you guys want it. Fetterman's talking about comparing Greenland and the comments that Trump has made recently to the Louisiana Purchase. Let me just bring this up here real quick. And I think he's gotten like some level of attention, but this isn't getting enough coverage. And a lot of his stuff, if we start watching it now, is getting less and less coverage by media outlets that are to the left of center or significantly to the left. The Ground News Breakdown kind of highlights that here. But it's, I don't know, I just find it humorous, some of the stuff that he's got going on here. So anyway, his comment, though, is acquiring Greenland is a responsible conversation. Democrats need to pace themselves on freaking out. That's Fetterman's feedback to the party. It's strange. It's almost like he's on a path at some point to completely break away. I don't know what you guys think out there, but it's, I mean, he's setting himself up to go a completely different direction. I don't know if he's really politicizing it, but I mean, I think that this is just how he feels. That's the kind of guy he is. He just puts it out there, right? Let me just put a poll out there. Fetterman. So anyway, his full quote is, I do think it's a responsible conversation if they were open to acquiring it and whether just buying it outright. If anyone thinks that it's bonkers, remember of the Louisiana Purchase, I think Alaska was a pretty great deal, and he goes on from there. I don't know what's going to come of this, but I'm actually fascinated by it, and I hope that it continues a bit. What is the value in Greenland? You know, some of these other places, I think that's the conversation that a lot of liberal influencers, commentators, and so forth are putting out there, which is interesting to me because they almost speak of Greenland in a derogatory way. Like, why would anybody want it? Of course, you go, you know, backtrack a few months before, and well, Greenland is the center of the universe when it comes to climate and you know, keeping the ice caps intact and everything. The erosion of you know, the glaciers and everything that would center on there. And all of a sudden, nobody on the liberal side wants it anymore. But go figure. It is a strategic, you know, locate land. Just when you look at the Atlantic Ocean and going into the in the Arctic, it is strategically positioned because I mean the world is round, right? So it doesn't take much to get yourself over to Russia from there. But anyway, Fetterman is all over that. The other big one that got a lot of coverage, I think there was over 600 articles the Ground News captured on this. Is that right? Yeah, 683. Wow, it keeps going up. Meta, and this has been a trend that Zuckerberg has demonstrated since, you know, just before the election, where he started to openly acknowledge that maybe there was mistakes made when he went out and, you know, had a bunch of fact checkers out there, took sides to a significant degree in the election. Some folks are saying it's because of remarks that Trump has made of holding people accountable that took those types of positions. He's indicating it's a revelation. I don't know what you guys think. drop in the chat if you have a thought process on it. But the outcome, honestly, I personally don't care where he's coming from. I just like the outcome that's going to come from this. Because if they do move to a system, as he's indicating, similar to what's on the X platform, I mean, it resolves itself. So, I mean, I participate in the community notes program. I can, rate things, add comments, and I have for a few things. And the interesting part is that for the most part, everybody that is a participant in there works to, present the information as plainly as possible. And when there is a note provided, it doesn't immediately go live. It needs, and the calculus behind it is not broadcasted publicly, but when a comment is added to something, it needs a certain level of acceptance by the community in order for it to actually make itself live, for it to be viewable by everybody. So, I mean, I get to see everything because I'm part of the program, but when it comes down to it, if something is to actually make its way out onto the platform, let me try and expand this screen a little bit so that you can see a little bit better, hopefully. All right, not too bad. So if something's to make its way out there onto the platform and be viewable by the full public, it would need to have gotten a certain level of support from participants in the community notes program, and they give you ratings. And so if your ratings are found to be counter to what the majority of folks think, it's a little bit more complex to it, but your ratings are driven by the community. There's, a few different feedback loops that go into it, and you can eventually find yourself out of the program if, you rate something as being helpful, and yet time and again, it's been found to be not helpful by the public, right? Then, your ratings go down and you get diminished. Otherwise, the impact you've had on the community will go up with each one that you do rate as being a helpful comment or helpful post, or if there is something that's out of context, being able to, rate something as not being helpful so that it's not something that's made visible. And of course, that's also crowdsourced in that way. So I think it's a very nice program. Meta heading in that direction would be a welcome change from the current approach they have that's just relying on third-party fact checkers that, of course, the lion's share of them are the same folks that are running the legacy media. So just looking at ground news, the interesting part here now is how the coverage is taking place between the right and left. You look at the bias distribution, it's pretty even across the spectrum. And of course, again, there's about 680 articles that have been published on this topic, so a pretty significant footprint. But from the left, they're focusing in on the fact-checking program as it's going to replace, the fact-checking program will be replaced with a user-generated community notes type program. They're highlighting that Zuckerberg criticized governments and legacy media for pushing them to censor more and more. He said that the problem with complex systems is that they make mistakes, and he emphasized the need to reduce errors. And so this crowdsourcing is a mechanism to do that. And then they, talk about his error rate. So that's kind of the angle that they take from the left. Not as harsh of a stance as I would have expected. I thought they would have had a more hard line on him, just because they're counter to anything that Elon has put into play. But from the center standpoint, they highlight pretty much the same talking points, and the right is just really kind of doubling down on the program that was in there in the past was completely bogus. Let me hit the comparison here. So from the left, they're emphasizing the politicized censorship that Zuckerberg's underscoring. And I'm surprised that they're going there. In the past, you wouldn't have seen those viewpoints really expressed in those types of publications because, that would be the angle that the more right-leaning publications would have in there. And of course, this one's an interesting one. the difference between ideological shifts versus collaboration with Trump being underscored from one viewpoint to the next. I think that's probably a pretty significant difference in there. And then it goes on there, and you can pick out, whatever articles that you want. And again, the link is in the pinned chat. If you're on mobile, you can check out my link tree. It's just in my bio. Check out Ground News, 15% off for the community. And the last one I got here, Trudeau. We looked at his speech as it was kind of unfolding about his resignation on Monday. Called it out the night before when a lot of folks were still skeptical if that even was going to go through or not. And again, 200 articles on this. I'm surprised it got so much coverage given how poorly he was polling. He was about 25 points behind Pierre Poilievre in the voting for their Conservative Party versus Trudeau's group. But Trudeau's been on his last leg for quite some time. I'm actually surprised that he's lasted this long. And so all this talk now more recently, I honestly can't tell if it's a joke or if it's pretty serious about annexing Canada. Well, not really annexing, but going through a process of having them become a part of the United States or not. And it's because we'll get to it here in next up. Let me just go back. It's because Trump's acceptance speech that he gave here, he actually went through and started to highlight some of these things that were in it. All right, let me bring this up. All right, let's get this going.
Thank you very much. So nice. And that man knows what he's doing. He knows. So, Hussein, we're going to work with you and make sure everything goes smoothly. We have powers that haven't really been used in terms of environmental. If you invest over $1 billion in the United States, we're going to give expedited reviews to everybody because everyone's afraid they're going to come in and get caught in the quagmire, which is very prevalent in the United States, unfortunately, the quagmire of environmental and various other regulations and rules. And I made it a point of telling people if you invest $1 billion or more, and we'll do this for people with far less too, but we guarantee it. We're going to move them quickly through the environmental process. Sometimes people held up 12, 13, 14, 15 years. I saw it with plants in Louisiana where I got it approved in literally a week. They were through the review in 1 week after spending 14 and a half years trying to get it, and they were going nowhere. It was a terrible thing. So I've been a victim of that myself over the years, and I think I know all the games and all the tricks that are played, and much of it is just...
And the plants that he's talking about specifically are the LNG export facilities, which it's not just about oil and gas. It's not just about profit, but there's a national security element in that as well. Because you have to keep in mind a lot of the conflict that's going on right now in Europe in particular is centered around exports of Russian natural gas to Europe, Germany being a massive consumer. There are oil fields and oil and gas fields being explored in the Mediterranean, but it may not suffice the demand from Europe. So what do you do as an alternative? Who do you turn to? Because they need to heat their homes in the middle of winter. This was a challenge back in 2021, when the conflict really took off at that point in time. But exporting natural gas from the United States in the form of LNG would be a significant security accomplishment for Europe. So why that was delayed, just for the sake of promoting environmentalism or the guise of environmentalism, because of course natural gas, from us is no different than them, taking it from Russia. It's the same product more or less, but it would be, much more secure, from the standpoint of having that come from us versus that money getting funneled into who knows what else, right? Yeah, Alan, I know it's weird. I mean, they have that Nord Stream pipeline that goes directly from Russia to Europe that provides them access to natural gas. And so that's it's those LNG facilities that he's talking about in Louisiana and elsewhere that had just been hung up. And so for like well over a decade, they've just been sitting there, waiting to kind of execute on, construction and so forth. And he's, gone through and expedited them. So he didn't go into specifically what facilities were held up in regulation. But I mean, those are the ones that I'm focusing on because as they talk about energy independence, being a dominant player in the world with respect to energy, to me, it's all about those, all about national security, about global security. Because if you could diminish the, capital that some of these other countries have at their disposal, it would really kind of tone things down. Hey, Alan, did Biden really blow that up? It seems, I think Trump has indicated that he did. I don't know what else happened. It's like the simplest answer to it, but I don't know if anybody's like really going to come out and like claim ownership for it, right? And then, of course, there was been retaliation back and forth, some cybersecurity attacks, a lot of data breaches, infrastructure being hit. So there's a constant back and forth that's happening, whether or not it's completely acknowledged or recognized is another story, but it's it's an ongoing conflict. So anyway, the idea of enabling those facilities and green lighting them to get construction going, complete the projects, and then be in a position to actually export, because there's a lot of natural gas that gets trapped. Doesn't really have a market to go out to, and they have to shut the wells in Texas and elsewhere because we have such a surplus.
It's just done to stop progress. So we're going to be helping you and everybody else that comes to the United States and wants to invest their money, that you don't get tied up for the rest of your life and you can't do anything. This commitment further underscores that many of the greatest business leaders on earth are seeing a very bright economic future for America since the election. As you know, a lot of positive things have happened. We are inheriting a difficult situation from the outgoing administration, and they're trying everything they can to make it more difficult. Inflation is continuing to rage, and interest rates are far too high. And I've been disappointed to see the Biden administration's attempt to block the reforms of the American people and that they voted for. We had a landslide election. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people. Nobody even knows how many people, millions. And they're still counting in some areas. They're still counting the vote in some.
Yeah, that's pretty pathetic that they're still counting in some areas. And again, there's just a handful of folks watching right now. Hopefully we pick up a little bit here. But if you have any comments you want to kind of chime in, go ahead and drop something in the chat. I'm primarily looking at YouTube. I'm also trying to scan some other platforms that I'm being simulcast on. But I do have a link in the bio for folks to join in as a guest. You could come in and, I'll give you a few minutes to just, express your thought on whatever it is, the topic at hand that might have in mind, but it'll be a live call in. So take a look. It's in the description of the video. You could look at if you're on mobile, take a look at the link in my bio. It'll take you to my link tree, and the very first link on there will be the guest link.
Areas. Can you believe this? What a place. What a horrible place. One of the things we're going to do is we've got to fix the election so that we get honest counts and they get done by 10 o'clock in the evening or something thereabouts. They have places where they're still counting votes. President Biden's actions yesterday on offshore drilling, banning offshore drilling, will not stand. I will reverse it immediately. It'll be done immediately. And we will drill.
And that's another thing too, right? So Biden actually issued executive orders to take quite a few, well, actually just about the entire United States off the table in terms of oil and gas exploration and drilling. Why do that? I mean, we're what, a week away, maybe just over a week away from the inauguration, and you're going to issue something like that that you very well know will be undone or is not in favor of the new administration coming in. So why do something like that? It's not just procedural. It's going to take a little bit of effort to undo that. It's not just a stroke of the pen type effect, as Kamala would note. So it will take a little bit of effort to undo it. So it's more of a headache. It's petty. Why would you do something like that just out of pettiness, right? Talking about the national security elements associated with it, why do that, right? And Alan, you're right. So all the jobs that get knocked out of that, the Teamsters union, a few lives ago, watched through an interview with the president of the Teamsters union, and he directly, he was shocked by the first action that Biden took when he came into office, canceling Keystone Pipeline. He just said outright, our union lost 7,000 jobs overnight. And so it's bizarre, right? So again, there's a lot of union jobs associated with this. Why would you take an action like that? It's almost like a downward spiral for the party to a significant degree. You're looking at, your voting base, the claims to, be for working class folks, and then in the same vein, you take actions that impact their livelihoods for quite a few of them, right? And it's something that happened on day one. Absolutely right, Alan. Something that hit day one, and again at the 11th hour, on his last day, it's pretty much happening again, right? Yeah, absolutely right too. And those jobs did support a significant number of folks around the country. I mean, in those regions that they were at in particular. Whether it's restaurants, I mean, you go down the list of things in terms of the supply chain effect that it had. But it's very short-term thinking. It's not very, I don't know, it's not very much in the interest of individuals or people. It's political. It's petty. So why do something like that when you clearly know it's not in the favor of the next administration? I mean, the honorable thing would be to just not make those types of decisions. Don't make commitments that lock the country into something for, the next few years, even though Trump would have no problem saying like, nope, that's null and void, whatever it is that he might have done. But again, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes resource. It'll be a waste of taxpayer dollars, to have all of the staff go through that stuff and make sure it's unwound.
Maybe drill. And we're going to be drilling in a lot of other locations, and the energy costs are going to come way down. They'll be brought down to a very low level, and that's going to bring everything else down. That's what caused it to go up, along with the ridiculous spending on the Green New Scam. All this money, trillions of dollars. It's like
I
throwing
like how he
it right
calls
out
it the
the
Green
window
New
what they're
Scam
doing.
too.
And they're trying to spend so much now. They're just taking money and giving it to anybody that wants it for any project at all, if it's certified under the Green New Scam. And they don't work, and it's too expensive. And they told me that we're going to do everything possible to make this transition to the new administration very smooth. It's not smooth because they're doing that. They're playing with the courts, as you know. They've been playing with the courts for 4 years, probably got me more votes because I got the highest number of votes ever gotten by a Republican, by far, actually, by a lot. And, we had a great election, so I guess it didn't work. But even to this day, they're playing with the courts. They're friendly judges that like to try and make everybody happy on the Democrat side. It's called lawfare. It's called weaponization of justice, and it's happened at a level nobody's ever seen before. So many. I defeated deranged Jack Smith. He's a deranged individual. I guess he's on his way back to The Hague. and we won those cases. Those were the biggest ones, and the press made such a big deal out of them, but we did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong on anything, and the people saw that. You know, when they vote when a Republican, it's not easy for a Republican. When the Republican wins the popular vote by millions and wins all 7 of the swing states, people said, well, he could win 4. We won all 7, and we won them by a lot. That tells you we won. That tells, and they've been watching this injustice. I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects. I'm under.
Yeah, so judges is one thing. The closure on the California side, that's pretty crazy. That there's another 2 because, I mean, there's a special formulation of gasoline that's required in the state. That's only required in California. It's not something that's really sold anywhere else in the country. So, you know, you basically have to refine it in state. So, I mean, reducing that supply is only going to drive up the cost for California. That's why if you go out there, it's been significantly more than anywhere else in the country. I think one time it was like, when I was out there, it was like $7 a gallon or something. I don't know if that's consistent or what have you, or if it just happened to be that time frame I was there. But I think for premium, it was like $7 a gallon or something.
Okay, do you know that I'm the president-elect of the United States of America? I'm a former very successful president. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We had borders that were sealed and beautiful. We had, everything was good. We had no wars. We defeated ISIS. We had no wars. Now I'm going into a world that's burning with Russia and Ukraine, with Israel. You took a look at that attack on October 7th, the attack on Israel, with the horrible way they got out. Not the fact that they got out. I would have been out before them, but we would have been out of Afghanistan with dignity and strength as opposed to looking like a bunch of fools with 13 dead and many, many badly, horrifically injured. Nobody ever talks about them. No arms, no legs.
Yeah, I guess the comment that's up right now. So, I mean, depleting currency is something that communist countries do, as well as take guns, indoctrination of children. The currency one is really problematic, and it's I don't know if the Democrat Party wholeheartedly believes in modern monetary theory, or they're just leveraging that as an excuse to just print to no end. It's I mean, basically the 3 tenets of it. You're the government. You have your own currency. You can print as much as you want. It's no big deal. You can leverage that to get things done. If you need to manage inflation, you raise taxes on everybody, and that'll bring down demand. Again, kind of bizarre. And debt to GDP and everything is no big deal because, I mean, you're the one that created the currency. So at any point, cancellation of that debt or just printing more money, it'll take care of itself. And those 3 tenets, it's absolutely bizarre. There's so much room for error there because it's counting on this perfect theoretical system that somebody's devised in their mind. And so when you hear about these Nobel laureates that, that are supportive of Harris, that were supportive of Biden, every single one of them were proponents of modern monetary theory, and why they were awarded the Nobel Prize because of this academic model that they just created that has no real practical application to it. I'm just astonished. So again, when they say raise taxes to control inflation because it reduces demand, I mean, the fallacy, the thought process is that the government is taking that money. They're not just going to, hit the delete button on it. They're actually going to go spend it. So the demand is not going to come from people. The government is still creating that demand. It doesn't go away. And again, that, will inflate, prices, but it'll do it based on what the government thinks is the priority, not the individual. So I mean, there's a lot of problems with that model, and unfortunately, we've had a glimpse into it with the massive printing press that's unfolded over the past 4 years now. Let's see, just filled up $37 for 16 gallons. Neighborhoods around 485, premium 635. Wow, yeah. And I'm assuming it's a little bit less right now because I think oil was floating around 70-ish. Let me just double check. Got it on my phone here. Is that right? Oh, 74. And this is for West Texas, not for Brent. So West Texas is about 74 and change. Excuse me. All right, let me get him going back here while I cough.
Nobody ever talks about that. The way they got out was outrageous, leaving
Stephen,
billions of dollars of brand new military equipment that I bought in the hands of the Afghans and specifically the Taliban. It's the group. And we were doing very well. We would have been out. We would have been respected. I think it's one of the reasons it was so badly handled, that withdrawal where people are jumping onto airplanes, falling off the sides of airplanes when they're 3,000 feet in the air. And nobody's ever seen anything like that, the worst. And because of that, I think Russia went and attacked Ukraine. When they saw that, they said, these guys are incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. But we know what we're doing now. And that's going to all end. And we have a great military. I defeated ISIS, as you know. We're in no wars. I just finished a couple. And we got also our soldiers guarding Syria and Turkey. We're in the middle. We had 5,000 soldiers. They would have been gobbled up with two armies. We had one army, 300,000. We had another one, 500,000 or 600,000, getting ready. We had 5,000 people in the middle. I said to a general, how do 5,000 people do in that case? And the general just looked at me and said, not well, sir, not well. And I took him out. And you know what happened? Nothing. I got criticized. I saved 5,000 lives, actually. And we did a great job, and we're going to do an even better job because now we have a tremendous amount of experience. We have people that I can rely on. But the 625 million acres, people can't realize, that's like the whole ocean. Take an acre. You know, an acre, you have a house on a half an acre, on a quarter of an acre, or an acre. If you have an acre, you have a big deal. Now you multiply that by 625 million acres. It's like, feels like the whole ocean. And that's our strength, you know. People can say we manufacture, we don't manufacture. The thing we have oil and gas more than anybody in the world. We're going to have more of it, too. But they took away 625 million acres of offshore drilling. Nobody else does that. And they think they have it, but we'll put it back. I'm going to put it back on day one. I'm going to have it revoked on day one. We'll go immediately if we need to. I don't think we should have to go to the courts. But if we do have to go to the courts, you know, they try to be sneaky. They go in and they sign. Remember, this is a man that said he wants the transition to be smooth. Well, you don't do the kind of things. You don't have a judge working real hard to try and embarrass you. Because I did nothing wrong. By the way, I did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. If I did something wrong, I would.
Yeah, I'm just watching the chat here a little bit. 3,300, excuse me. 1 bedroom in California. Jeez, that is crazy. Yeah, 330 get you. I mean, that's the crazy part. I mean, you look from one state to the next, and you think about what has driven those prices up. A combination of so many factors, right? All of them, though, are not in the interest of individuals, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, Weasel Weasel. Looks like you're not alone in feeling that pain either. So I mean, I grew up in California, but it was a much different California for me at that point in time. This was before .com bubble, right? And just as the bubble burst, I kind of left the state at that point. So the hyper accelerated growth of real estate prices, all of that stuff, was not there for. So when I go back now, I don't recognize the state because there's so much that's changed. Biden wasn't competent enough to be charged, so why is he competent to pass anything? Didn't they just glaze over that? Was that the Her report that came out? And I mean, that's a real, I don't know, like strike against him that he did not think a jury would convict him because they would not believe that he was complicit in those things, that he was just, a nice old man that had no idea what was going on around him, more or less.
Wouldn't be standing here right now because I've won all these cases. Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have against the Justice Department. I mean, Jack Smith had cases all over the place. People were being subpoenaed, lives were being ruined. They were spending everything they had, money. We were helping them out. We had to. They were subpoenaing people that had no idea what they were even talking about. That's a sick group of people. And it was all to influence the election. It was all a fight against a political opponent. We've never had that in this country. We have had that in certain countries. We've had that in third-tier countries.
Yeah, so weekend, $7 a dozen for eggs. Geez. I thought it was kind of crazy. I think it's about 4 where I'm at, which again, it's just like the variance that was before and after, just in a handful of years. I mean, there's surveys that are coming out. This is what has me concerned about the economy right now. There's surveys coming out that show half of people have difficulty, making ends meet to pay rent. And then a significant portion of those folks are skipping meals to pay rent. And the list goes down from there, all these surveys that have gone out. Debt levels are increasing significantly. What was another one recently around defaults on credit cards were at the highest level since 2010, I think. And then, of course, you got to think, okay, what was going on in 2010? Well, it was the year right after like the absolute bottom of the financial crisis. And so it's not that by 2010 everything was great. It was that once you hit 2010, things were just starting to completely, unwind. The markets or Wall Street, that's where they hit a bottom. Main Street, I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't move side by side with Wall Street, right? That has a bit of a lag to it potentially. Or sometimes it could be earlier, right? They don't move in tandem like that. So you can definitely say since the financial crisis, a lot of these data points are at the worst point that they have been. And it's being completely disregarded by Democrats. And I think that's a big part of what cost them the election, that they did not consider how individuals were being impacted by all these things. Glad Harris didn't win. Yeah. And I mean, the big focus they always have is like, look at the Dow Jones, look at it's 40,000 all-time highs. But in reality, who is that really what people are concerned about when they're trying to make ends meet? That the stock market is at all-time highs. How many of these folks actually have any significant vesting that matters to them day to day? I mean, there may be a 401k or something that's contributed to an IRA. But I mean, those things are locked up. It's not like a day-to-day impact for folks. So why are these, I mean, we want to talk about who's for the billionaires. Why are these billionaire metrics the ones that they advertise? And then so many folks that are in the Democrat side reiterate that. Like, look, everything's great. Look at the stock market. But they don't stop to, speak about what that means on a personal basis, right? I mean, that's where Pierre Poilievre is really, I mean, he ended Trudeau's career more or less at this point. And it's not that it was malicious. it was necessary to get Canada back on track. There's so many examples of stories that he has brought out that he's actually demonstrates that he's actually listening to people and seeing what matters to them. And the bottom line for me, because there's a lot of news coming out now that talks about the billionaires are in charge now: Trump, Elon, Vivek. You go down the list. There's a lot of reports coming out that that's what's going on. I think that's a narrative they're trying to spin as we enter into the inauguration to make that dominate the the talking points. But is that really what's happening? That the billionaires are taking over? When you look at members of Congress that were of modest means, but by the time they decide to leave Congress, if they ever do, like in the case of Joe Biden, by the time they leave, they have tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. And when you compare it against the salary they're paid, it's like there is no way that makes any sense at all. Even if 100% of their paycheck was invested, how can you go from that just $200,000 a year salary to having a net worth of over 200 million? Right? There's something wrong there. And so then that's the variance that people, I think, are starting to see through. That group that seems to kind of build their own empire through politics are accusing the folks that already have an empire of being the ones that are up to no good.
We've had that in banana republics, but we've never had that in a place like the United States. I don't even know if it's been on a small level. I'm sure it has been on a small level, but this was the largest level ever. They brought this more.
Yeah, exactly right. So AOC is an example, right? How is she wearing designer stuff all the time? She's got multiple residences now. How's that even possible? I mean, I know Congress gets a good salary, right? They're not doing too bad, but they're not doing that good, right?
On out of The Hague. He's a mean guy. He's a mean, nasty guy. His picture was perfect because you look at his picture, you say, that's a bad guy with his robe, his purple robe. And he executes people. He shouldn't be allowed to execute people because he'll execute everybody. He's a nut job. But we won all of those cases with him. And, I don't know.
Yeah, so the stock market is, all of the quantitative easing, right? So we had the financial crisis. Quantitative easing is basically print money, throw it into the system, and inflate asset prices to make sure that, there's consequence if those asset prices were to have diminished. And so they've been printing money at a pretty steady pace for over a decade. And then all of a sudden you had this massive, massive influx. Trump didn't have a choice during COVID. Nobody had a better idea. And if you would have waited a month and a half longer, it would have been completely catastrophic. So it's one of those necessary evils, I think, because honestly, who had a better idea at that point in time? But a year later, once things had stabilized, you had an option. You didn't have to print even more, right? More than twice as much as what was printed during COVID. To do what? I mean, what was the outcome of the infrastructure bill? What was the outcome of the Inflation Reduction Act, right? There's a complete disconnect here. Another interesting comment here by Sam. It's worth considering that because there are already billionaires, there's less incentive for paid corruption or money-making endeavors. It's still a risk, but it's lower. And I think that's true. It's been well documented. Trump's net worth dropped significantly. I don't remember the exact figure, but if he was worth $3 billion, it's like he was worth $2.5 billion after he left office. So, he took a significant hit. And when the entire system is gunning for you, is it really worth it if that's your primary interest, right? Elon spent $50 billion to buy Twitter. If his primary goal in life was to just keep making more money, I seriously doubt that he's completely recouped anywhere near that in terms of his investment. And I mean, it's a private company now, so it's not like they publish their earnings or so forth. But I mean, that was a completely inflated, valuation for the company. And again, when he was interviewed about it, he said, I don't care. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm pretty sure it was 50 billion. Let me see if I could get my, hang on a second. Let me pull up my AI.
In your mind.
Hey, how much was Twitter acquired for?
Twitter was acquired by Elon Musk for about $44 billion in 2022. Quite a hefty price tag, huh?
Okay. All right. So 44 billion. I mean, massive amounts of money were spent to acquire Twitter. And I mean, he's got it. Because honestly, I mean, you think about him, it's like he's worth what, like 400 billion or something astronomical. And it's like, what's it to me if, I have 350 billion now? Like, does it really matter? So, I mean, there's other drivers behind doing this stuff.
The judge in Florida, but we had a brilliant judge in Florida that saw right through it, and we won the case. She was a brilliant judge with great courage. The left, as we call them, the radical left, they have a way, they play the ref, and they play it very hard. They play the ref. They go and say horrible things about judges and prosecutors. And some judges and prosecutors say, look, the only way I'm going to get these people off my back is to give victory to them. They're playing the ref. I think it's illegal what they do. It's almost like talking. It's worse than talking to a judge. But the judge in Florida, Judge Cannon, was brilliant and tough, and she didn't stand for it. And I don't know her. And never met her until the case, and I don't believe I said even one word to her. But she was very, very strong and very, very brilliant. And her opinion was so brilliant that they dropped their appeal. They couldn't beat the appeal. So that's what we're up against. So they say we're going to have a smooth transition.
Hey, and I will be right back. I'm just going to continue this playing. I just got to take a short break, but I'm going to let Trump keep going on his second acceptance speech after the electoral votes were certified. The best stuff is yet to come on this. It's talking about Greenland, Panama Canal, the Gulf of Mexico, all kinds of good stuff's coming up here. But keep dropping comments in the chat. And if you haven't already done so, give the live a like. Very much appreciative if y'all can do that. And I'll be back in just a moment, but I'll keep this going for you.
All they do is talk. It's all talk. Everything they do is talk. We're going to have a smooth transition, and then they take 625 million acres and they essentially landmark it so you can't ever drill there again. Well, we're going to be drilling soon. We're going to be opening up Anwar. We're going to be doing all sorts of things that nobody ever thought was even possible. But remember and just to get off the subject, because I couldn't believe it when I heard it yesterday. I couldn't believe the size of it. I mean, you put down a map and put this up. It's just massive. And remember that that's worth probably, I mean, I've had estimates, $40 to $50 trillion. That's more than our national debt. Essentially, he's thrown it away. He's thrown it away. He's taken $50 trillion. So if we owe $35 trillion, he's taken $50 trillion of value and thrown it right out the window. We can't do that. Nobody can do that. One other thing he did yesterday, which was in many ways worse. It's hard to believe it can be worse. He wants all gas heaters out of your homes and apartments. He wants them to be replaced by essentially electric heaters. I don't know what it is with electric. This guy loves electric. We're going to be ending the electric car mandate quickly, by the way. This guy loves electric. And we don't have enough electricity. And then we have AI where we need more. And he wants everybody to have an electric heater instead of a gas heater. Gas heater is much less expensive. The heat is much better. It's a much better heat. As the expression goes, you don't itch. Does anybody have a heater where you go and you're scratching? And that's what they want you to have. They don't want you to have gas where you don't have the problems of the electric. And the source is plentiful. They're much cheaper to operate. They're much better. They work much better. They look much better. 60% of homes and apartments have gas heaters. He wants them all removed quickly. These people are crazy. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. They also want to go back, and they have already started that, to when you buy a faucet, no water comes out because they want to preserve. Even in areas that have so much water, you don't know what to do. It's called rain. It comes down from heaven. And they want to do, no water comes out of the shower. It goes drip, drip, drip. So what happens? You're in the shower 10 times as long, you know. No water comes out of the faucet. You want to wash your hands. They want to go back to even stronger than what they have right now. As you know, I ended that policy. You can have all the water you want. Makes no difference. It comes weird, especially in certain areas. We have so much water, we don't know what to do with it. But these are all things. They want very, very little water to go into your dishwasher, almost none. And you know what people do? They just keep pressing, 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 keep it going. They end up using more water. Likewise, washing machines. They want in your washing machine to have very little water coming out of the washing machine. So when you wash your clothing, you have to wash it 4 times instead of once. You end up using more water. We're a party of common sense, and things that I'm telling you now is really all about common sense. On January 20th, we'll turn the economy around very quickly, because right now when I think of our economy, I think about inflation. That's what we have. We have inflation, I believe, at a level that we never had before. There's never been anything like it. And over the next 4 years, the United States is going to take off like a rocket ship. But really, it's already doing it. If you take a look, just last month, SoftBank announced the $200 billion. I think it'll be 200. He said between 100, and I said, how about making it 200? And he sort of said yes, but let's say it's 100, but it might be 200, right, Brian? Dollars, United States creating more than 100,000 jobs. Hussein just announced a tremendous investment that he's going to make, and that's money that's in the bank. He's going to come and do it, and he'll do a great job, and he'll build the best centers in the country, I guarantee, because I know the way he builds. Since my election, the stock market has set records. The S&P 500 index has broken above 6,000 points for the first time ever, never even close. In a single month, small business optimism soared 41 points. It's not a 41. It went up 41 points. And that's the largest in the 39-year history of the group that does it. According to Gallup, the American people's confidence in the economy has just surged to the highest level in history. That's why I have a news conference like that. I take the greatest business leaders in the world. I say, hey, do you want to say you're going to invest the money? They're not looking for news conferences. They're saying, what am I doing here? They go in and they invest money. But it's good to know where the smartest business people in the world are investing, and they're investing in the United States. So we've done this all in 2 months of not being there. You know, we haven't been there. And it's pretty amazing, and we think we're going to do some really great things, really great things. We're being respected again all over the world. The Panama Canal is a disgrace, what took place at the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter gave it to them for $1, and they were supposed to treat us well. I thought it was a terrible thing to do. You know, it's the most expensive structure ever built in the history of our country, relatively. It would be the equivalent of substantially over $1 trillion today. We lost 38,000 people. Think of it, 38,000 people, they died from malaria, mosquitoes. They were unable to stop the mosquitoes. They paid people 5 times more to take the job. Many of those people died. We gave it away for $1. But the deal was that, you know, they have to treat us fairly. They don't treat us fairly. They charge more for our ships than they charge for ships of other countries. They charge more for our Navy than they charge for navies of other countries. They laugh at us because they think we're stupid.
Hey, I'm back, guys. I had to let my dog out. It's funny because it's pretty cold outside, so she normally will go out there and just run back in, but it took a minute, wandered around. I think there may have been some critters out there in the backyard that it smelled. But excuse me. What he's talking about now, I think, is an important point, and it's something that echoes true in multiple instances, not just with the canal, but the folks that we've had in charge of many different things, many high-level positions in the government, especially decision-making roles, ones that watch over, major contracts and expenditures. They have no thought process, and maybe in a lot of cases, no experience in doing things efficiently, doing things competitively, demanding better pricing. Because to them, budget is endless. They just, who do we want to give the contract to? $10,000 a hammer? Okay, great. Very nice comment, Rick. I hope you're having a good day. But it's problematic because this is money that they're taking from people, right? If you clean that up, and that's the purpose of this new efficiency department, you clean that up. It's twofold, right? It's making sure that you get the right pricing, you get the right value for what's invested, and the other aspect is if you're not getting that return that you're expecting, for instance, you invest in a given program because you want to promote housing or you want to promote job growth, whatever it might be. If that's not the outcome that is being achieved, then cut that investment. Try something else. Which that's shocking to a lot of folks on the liberal side, but you don't bring about change by continuing to do the same thing over and over again. If there's an outcome you want, improve home ownership levels. That's a pretty big one people talk about. If that's the outcome you want, and you're investing billions of dollars, and for the last decade it hasn't moved the needle at all, why not stop that? Get some people together, get creative, figure out something else. It's not about being the person like you would hear on the campaigns, like, I have a plan. He has concepts of a plan. You don't have to have all the answers up front, but it doesn't take a lot to recognize when something's not working and when you need to bring experts together, because that's what a leader does. Trump doesn't have all the answers. He's not the astronomically high IQ person in the room like Elon or somebody else. But it takes a blend of somebody like him that's going to push things through, going to demand excellence out of people, demand the right pricing, demand that the right outcomes are achieved, or switch gears, along with bringing the right experts together that are committed to achieving these outcomes. Alan, so funny. My wife just said you have a voice like NPR. So the funny thing is, right, I've titled my live streams now as Political ASMR because literally on the first one I did, which wasn't that long ago, maybe a month and a half ago now, somebody said, hey, this is like Political ASMR. And so that's just kind of like stuck. So it's funny. I appreciate that, but it's just funny that keeps coming up. All right, let's keep Trump going. But I think that's an important point. And there's a lot of these points that get overlooked. Or not as well appreciated, I think.
But we're not stupid anymore. So the Panama Canal is under discussion with them right now. They violated every aspect of the agreement, and they've morally violated it also. And they want our help because it's leaking and not in good repair. And they want us to give $3 billion to help fix it. I said, well, why don't you get the money from China? Because China's basically taken it over. China's at both ends of the Panama Canal. China's running the Panama Canal. And they come to see this Biden, this guy who should never have been allowed even to run for president. Of course, she shouldn't have either, because that never happened. It had to be two people, not one. But they want $3 billion to fix the Panama Canal that's run by China and makes a lot of money, China. One of the most profitable structures ever built, because you have ships lined up back to Florida, frankly, and they just keep going through, and the numbers are staggering, $500,000 to $1 million a ship. And they took it away from us, meaning we gave it to them for $1. But not going to happen. What they've done to us, they've charged us, they've overcharged our ships, overcharged our Navy. And then when they need repair money, they come to the United States to put it up. We get nothing. Those days are over. Working with the Republican majorities in
A comment: most of our electricity comes from coal, oil. The government's pushing electricity that is renewable is wild. Excuse me. The coal has also steadily gone down, but been displaced by natural gas as well. Interestingly enough, a couple of years ago in Texas, we had that massive freeze. And in Texas, about 20% of the energy is generated by wind. And that's a lot of it's out in West Texas, where it's mostly desert and, well, there's a lot of wind. And when the freeze came through, they locked up, right? And they did not operate. And so what do you do at that point? It just, the power grid suffered. And the vast majority of folks, in major urban areas or major city centers went without power for a considerable amount of time. We had no power for about 5 days. Crazy to think. And at that point in time, we had, I don't know what, it was like 30-degree temperatures, 20s. So it impacted a lot of people there. And it's because, for whatever reason, they decided to go and produce 20% of the state's electricity with, wind turbines. And they could not handle cold weather. In fact, a lot of people began to be critical of the state, like, oh, they didn't install the cold weather kits on those windmills. That's what the problem was. But what they wouldn't say is that if you installed them, what powers the cold weather kits? It's powered by natural gas. So no matter what happens, you evidently always need a steady supply of natural gas to keep your windmills running.
Congress will cut taxes, slash regulations, raise wages, and boost incomes at a pace the world has not seen before, and certainly not from our country. We had a big chunk of it for the first 3 years prior to COVID coming in my administration. We had the greatest economy in history. We cut the most regulations in the history of our country, and I did that all in 4 years, by 4 times more than any other president cut. We did that in 4 years, and we were just getting started. We'll impose new tariffs so that the products on our stores will once again be stamped with those.
Guys, sorry about that. I was trying to block somebody on Twitch that put spam out there, but I accidentally hit the button to display the thing. Sometimes it picks up something to automatically display, but instead of hitting block, so I apologize. That spam just popped up on the screen there.
Beautiful words, made in the USA. And we are not treated well, as you know, by Canada. Canada is subsidized to the tune of about $200 billion a year, plus other things. They don't essentially have a military. They have a very small military. They rely on our military. It's all fine, but, they got to pay for that.
Thank you.
It's very unfair. I have so many great friends. One of them is the great one, Wayne Gretzky. I said, run for prime minister, you'll win it'll take 2 seconds. But he said, well, am I going to run for prime minister or governor? You tell me. I said, I don't know. Let's make it governor. I like it better. But no, something's going to have to be done. Same thing with Mexico. We have a massive deficit with Mexico, and we help Mexico a lot. They're essentially run by the cartels, and can't let that happen. Mexico's really in trouble, a lot of trouble. Very dangerous place. And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there, and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's to closing everything. Pretty soon we're going to.
And I mean, I hope you'll caught that piece. This is the one that there was quite a bit of uproar that happened as soon as he said it. I mean, this is not unlike things that happen in other countries. So, I mean, look at you know, there's a disputed waters between the Philippines and China, and they've each named it after themselves. I know this is not disputed territory, but I mean, I I don't know. I'm fine with it. It's you know, in a lot of respects, it's making a point of things, but well, yeah, you know, I take some of this as humor, and I'm okay with it. A lot of folks will then go down the track of identity politics with it, which is completely ridiculous. But anyway, so I'll play it again though. I mean, I'll probably make some YouTube shorts out of this one. But and by the way, check out my shorts on YouTube. I'm starting a series on Biden's best moments. I've already got episode 1 on there, which well, maybe I should bring it up. Hang on a second. Let me bring it up. Very proud of this clip. Very proud. Okay, come on. Hang on. Where are we at? Go to the channel. Okay, here we go. Let's share this tab.
I think this guy is a genius.
Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
I think this guy is a genius.
Anyway, so genius moments from Biden. We'll have a steady stream of those things. It's endless. I got to tell you, he's been like the best content provider in a very long time. Anyway, yeah, look out for those. All right, let me let him keep going. So the latest one, the Gulf of America. Let's see what else he's got up his sleeve.
Change because we do most of the work there and it's ours. We're going to be changing sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of 50 to 60 trillion dollars worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour in.
And the speech that he gave here, his second acceptance speech, as I'm calling it, it did coincide with you know, the Jimmy Carter funeral, and so you'll see the side by side here that C-SPAN's putting up. But yes, I mean, again, just earlier today, second acceptance speech, the major announcement so far, amongst other things, the Gulf of America.
Into our country, they can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada, because Canada, they come through Canada too, and the drugs that are coming through are at record numbers, record numbers. So we're going to make up for that by putting tariffs on Mexico and Canada, substantial tariffs. And we want to get along with everybody, but, you know, they have to.
So Wheezing Weasel, the other funny thing about Teslas, and, you know, great tech, it's not applicable for all use cases, right? You have the Gulf states that always, you know, get impacted by the weather, hurricanes that come through for a good portion of the year. I mean, June they start coming through, and season does not technically end until the end of October, I think, if I remember correctly. But if you lived on the southern tip of Florida, you had a hurricane coming through and you had a Tesla, I mean, what's the range on it? 350, 400 miles? I don't even know if they'll get you to the Panhandle, right? I mean, what do you do at that point? That's a difficult proposition for a lot of folks.
It takes two to tango. We're approaching the dawn of America's golden age. It's going to be a golden age for America.
Oh, and I see D not too excited about Trump's comments here. I'm pretty sure he's serious about his Gulf of America comment. But hey, I did also want to mention again, if I don't think there's anybody. No, I didn't get a ding. I do have a link in the description if you're on your laptop or what have you for the YouTube video to do a guest call-in. if anybody wants to call in, kind of share their thoughts. If you're on your phone, go to my link in my bio, and which is you'll find my link tree there. And the very first link on my link tree is for the guest call in. I try to add that in, during each of the lives, and then it gets taken out afterwards. But if you have any thoughts, you want to like kind of elaborate on any of your comments, doesn't matter. Don't have to debate if you don't agree with the stuff that we're talking about, or folks on the chat. I do want people to be able to voice their own perspectives. May ask them questions, but don't need to do the gotcha type stuff you see on some of the other live streams that are out there, particularly on the TikTok platform.
America, we have things that nobody else has. We have more natural resources. We have, number one, nobody knew that until I came along. I made us number one. We were number 3. I made us number 1 in a very short period of time in drilling. And you can talk about windmills. They litter our country. They're littered all over our country, like dropping paper, like dropping garbage in a field. And that's what happens to them, because in a period of time, they turn to garbage. Most expensive.
So interesting comment there. What would tariffs be used for exactly? Can you help out my live stream viewers with that?
They're used by governments to protect domestic industries, generate revenue, and sometimes to retaliate in trade disputes. Got more questions from your viewers? I'm here for them.
Where does that revenue go to? Anything in particular, or does it just go into a general fund?
Tariff revenue typically goes into a government's general fund. It's used for a variety of purposes like infrastructure, public services, or paying down national debt. Got more for me?
That's all for now. You want to tell the live stream viewers to like and subscribe?
Absolutely. Hey, live stream viewers, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated. Keep the good vibes rolling.
And that was my little AI buddy. So we'll get back to Trump here.
Energy ever. They only work if you get subsidy.
Question,
the only
though,
people
Ethan.
that want them are the people that are getting rich off windmills, getting massive subsidies from the U.S. government. And it's the most expensive energy there is. It's many, many times more expensive than clean natural gas. So we're going to try and have a policy where no windmills are being built. Off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build like 200 windmills. The people are going crazy. Nobody wants them. And they're very expensive. They don't work without subsidy. You don't want energy that needs subsidy. Energy is a good business. You don't need subsidy. But when you build these massive towers, and they're 25 stories tall, 40 stories, they have 170 stories tall. The blades, they take 3 ships to ship them. It's crazy. They're dangerous. You see what's happening up in the Massachusetts area with the whales, where they had 2 whales wash ashore in, I think, a 17-year period. And now they had 14 this season. The windmills are driving the whales crazy, obviously. And they had actually over, I think, 125 or something over a number of years. And we don't want that to happen. It's a disaster. It's amazing the way a true environmentalist would say, oh, we love wind. It sounds good, but that's about where it ends. After 10 years, you have to redo them. And what happens is they don't do that. They let them stand and they rust, and they say because of the.
Yeah, we'll let him get into more on that, but buy or just show up and say, this is mine. I mean, it was remarkable stuff. I'll let, excuse me, I'll let him speak for himself. But one thing that he did note that I think is important to underscore, he said clean natural gas. Not a lot of folks acknowledge that, but the displacement of coal with natural gas in the United States, I think upwards of 30-40% in the reduction of emissions happens instantly by just changing the fuel source. And of course, the technology has improved significantly over time to where the facilities run more efficiently. They can be further modified to help reduce pollution even further beyond that. Honestly, I worry sometimes how much CO2 we're actually kind of taking out of the atmosphere. I mean, is the Lorax going to show up because he's upset that the trees aren't growing anymore? I don't know. But anyway.
Environment. I'm not a believer in this, but they say you can, because it's a certain fiberglass, that the blades cannot be buried in earth, that's an environment. So what do you do with them? What do you do with them? And I don't know if you've ever gone to Palm Springs, California, or any of these places where you have long-term windmills standing. They're a disaster. They're rusting, rotting, closed, falling down. This is as you enter Palm Springs. And they put new ones next to them.
You know, so I mentioned that I grew up in California, and I remember, heading out in the desert that way to Palm Springs, or just, passing through on those interstates. There was a lot of times when the windmills they seemed stuck. They weren't moving at all, which I didn't understand what was going on with that, right? I don't know.
Because nobody wants to take them down, because why should they take them down? It's very expensive to take them down. And you can't do anything with them because the blades, you can't bury them because of the environmental protection. We'll look at that. Doesn't make sense, but that's what they say. So we are at the beginning of a great, beautiful golden age of business. And I think we're also at a golden age of common sense, because everything I'm saying to you, from a simple water faucet that doesn't allow water to come out.
We can. That's always been an issue
appropriately
with wildlife.
To all of the other elements of what we do and what we're going to do, to take $50 to $60 trillion off our country's balance sheet because some man that has no idea what he's doing, has no idea. You know it, I know it, the Democrats know it. What they did is a crime by allowing that to happen. And I'll bet you, if you asked him today, how much acreage did you submit? Essentially, did you destroy? You destroyed the economic viability of drilling in the ocean. And with AI coming along,
they're going to fly away tonight. All right, let me ask my AI if it could tell us about the construction of the canal. Hey, question for you, if you can help answer for my live stream viewers. Can you give just a really quick synopsis on who built the Panama Canal, its funding, and just an overall quick history on it?
The United States built the Panama Canal, completing it in 1914. The project was funded by the U.S. government and was a massive engineering feat, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It revolutionized global trade by significantly shortening maritime routes. Anything else your viewers are curious about?
There you go.
along and all, a lot of people don't realize that AI is going to be a big thing, but you'll need double the electricity at least that we have right now. So right now we produce electricity for many, many different things. AI is a very big deal in terms of the future. China is already building
Oddly enough, he talks about AI just as soon as my AI helped answer a few questions here, but we'll keep going. And again, hey, if you guys are in the live, please give it a like. Very appreciative of that. I do have a link, a guest call-in link that's in the description of the YouTube video. It's also on my link tree, which is easily available in my bio. If you're on your phone, that's probably more accessible to get through to that. But if you have any thoughts that you want to expand on, I'll give you guys a minute just to kind of broadcast it to folks, just to make your thoughts, visible out there.
electric facilities, big, bold electric facilities. And you know how they're being fired up? With coal. They're being fired up with
Hey, Enrico. How's it going from South Africa? How you doing? Thanks for joining.
coal. And we're going to build bigger and better ones. People like Hussein that are doing the same thing as he is. I'll bet they don't do it as well because I know how he does it, but they're doing a lot of things. The problem is they can't get their permits because I say build the plant with the building. So with the structure, build the plant, because if you go into grid, the grids are old. So they said, that's a great idea. In other words, build your electric facility alongside of your plant. And you could have extra output if you want, because once you build it, you can make it larger pretty inexpensively. You could have extra output, which you'll sell to the public, but build it with the plant, and people are loving that idea. So we're going to have a lot of fun making America great again, and it's going to happen, I think, very, very quickly. It's already happened. So I would say this, and this has been pretty openly reported by the news. There's never been anything like what's happened in the list since we won the election. Couple of months since we won the election, the whole perception of the whole world is different. People from other countries have called me. They say,
yeah, let me bring up Wikipedia real quick. So the AI, just to kind of, it's not, I didn't like feed it a bunch of data to just repeat or whatever, right? It, excuse me. It leverages what it considers to be an authoritative source. Wikipedia is one such source. You know, if you ask it information about a particular company, it'll say that company's website or investor relations pages that, you know, is a authoritative source for it. But I'm just going to, kind of small. I don't know if I can I zoom in? That work? So anyway, this is the Wikipedia page on the Panama Canal. And I'm just going to scan through it real quick while we're looking at that topic. I'm just going to look and see if it speaks to anyone specifically aside from the United States as being part of it. You're working for the United States government survey the isthmus and issue. Okay, so this gentleman was from a different, the Isle of Man, part of the British. Okay. So somebody that was working on behalf of the United States, helped to do some of the surveying proposal. Explored settler routes, French Navy. Okay. French Navy chiefs building Suez Canal. French construction attempts. Okay, I guess those didn't work out. United States acquisition. At this time, Roosevelt was interested in establishing the canal across the isthmus, with some favoring a canal across Nicaragua and others advocating for the French interest in Panama. They asked for 100 million, but they accepted 40. See that? Okay, that's deal making right there, right? That's deal making. They asked 100, but Roosevelt brought it down to 40. We don't do that anymore. The government just accepts any price that is given to them. So it was like French first, and then we acquired it. Renewable lease in perpetuity from Colombia. Land proposed for the canal. The treaty was ratified. All right, so treaty with Colombia, leasing the land. Oh, okay. Separation of Panama from Colombia. Okay, some political stuff happened behind the scenes there. Rebellion in Panama. What else? Supporting Panama rebels. The reason for the 1,000 Days War. Holy cow. I don't know about this 1,000-Day War. Left the Congress not to debate the canal, but to debate me. Okay. United States purchased French equipment and excavators, including the Panama Railroad for that. Okay, they already said that. In 21, Colombia and the United States entered into this treaty. Okay. Oh, they're repeating stuff here. Okay, U.S. construction of the Panama Canal, 04 to 14, formally took control May 4th, 1904. They inherited from the French a depleted workforce and a vast jumble of buildings, infrastructure, and equipment, much of it in poor condition. The U.S. government commissioned the Isthmian, I'm not saying it right, Canal Commission was established to oversee the construction. It was given control of the zone. in which U.S. exerted sovereignty over. Okay, chief engineer was appointed. What else? One of anything. Malaria problems. They built better living conditions, they being the United States, for the workers. Another benefit given to American citizens working on the canal was a medal for 2 years of service. And I'm skimming through this pretty quick, guys, just because I got this up on the screen for. I don't know. If somebody knows this in more depth, I mean, feel free to chime in. But I don't know. Not seeing anything. Anything contrary. So, I mean, it's the type of thing that Elon has. Is attributed credit for all of the rockets and all the ingenuity that's come out of SpaceX, Starlink, and everything. But of course, he has a team of engineers that are from all different backgrounds that he brought together to make those outcomes happen. I mean, when they say the U.S. built it, it's in the same vein. Of course, there's people from different places that were brought together, but it was brought together under the direction of the United States. Yeah, so forensic accountant, under the direction of the United States, under the, leadership of the United States, however you want to characterize it. There's a lot of Americans involved, a lot of American engineering, but it was not solely. I don't see what the big deal is. Um, so 30. Oh wow, 33 cigarettes. There was a reporter asking a question, so hopefully you can hear Trump now. But the reporter, it was very faint. I couldn't hear him that well either. But what he asked was if he could assure the world, I suppose, that he would not take any kind of military action, I guess, on Panama Canal. Interesting. So this particular reporter, you don't often see them get multiple questions when it's not a, like in the briefing room in the White House. There's some folks that get a few questions to ask in a row. So he jumps from Panama Canal now over to Ukraine and dealings with that. So, which to me, I conclude that he's just looking for a gotcha moment of some kind. I have no idea who this is. I don't know if he's trying to make a name for himself or just whatever it might be, but looking for a soundbite that he could bring back to his program, to his network, or whatever. Yeah. So forensic, I see that as, that's how the capitalism works. When you're employed, you're operating on behalf of another individual or another entity. In the case of most modern corporations, another legal entity, which I guess from the purposes of government is kind of treated like an individual. And any innovation that you do while you are employed by them is IP to that company, and you sign agreements to that effect. That's that's been the way it is for quite some time, and so I guess you're indicating that to, I guess, kind of reinforce that there were more folks that were involved in it, and of course there was more folks involved in it. But it's so funny when he says stuff like that. We have a thing called the ocean in between us. Yeah, all good, Alan. I don't know what just happened there. Did he just like jump on her question? I thought she was going to close the thought, but we didn't see how Trump gestured if he was pointing to the other lady there. But, I don't know. Weird. Man, that reporter just wants to get his question in. He doesn't. He's like totally out of tune with what's going on here. Don't think the Danes will give up Greenland. I don't know how that's going to unfold. I mean, this is all kind of catching me off guard. All the between the Panama and the Greenland stuff. It's like this was not part of the agenda, but I don't know. Let's see where it goes. Because in a lot of cases, there's more information that is out there that I'm not watching out for, and others aren't necessarily privy to. So I don't know. Is there an interest? The only thing with Greenland I could think of from a security standpoint is immediate access to the Arctic, or another buffer, in the North Atlantic there. Um, I don't know. I don't know what else might be involved. Um, I thought from the liberal side to be thrilled because we would be able to protect the glaciers, but I don't know. I guess not. Who knows? And maybe he is just trolling people. I don't know. What's going on, Liberty Tree? So I think of course, he's not going to delve into too much detail, right? I mean, that would make no sense at all. But the interesting thing to me is that he was very clear and upfront about how much of a factor Trump's name and reputation and the comments he's made has played into the negotiations. Um, because I mean, they a lot of other countries take him very seriously at his word. They don't think he's messing around, especially when there's Americans involved, which that is the case here, right? Funny, they didn't let him complete his thought there, right? And again, like a real leader, and a lot of these politicians are not leaders, especially ones that have just been in politics their whole lives. They just happen to be making decisions on your behalf through their votes, for better or worse. But the things that he just talked about, you watch any major um, leadership coach that's out there, Simon Sinek, um, Tony Robbins, a lot of folks that are out there, and they'll talk about the trust that they, in terms of leadership, put in you and instill in other people. You want them to operate with intent rather than to just kind of execute on tasks that have been given to them. You express some level of intent. You said, okay, these are the outcomes that we need. There's no alternative. You speak emphatically. You say what's on your mind, but whatever you think makes sense from a creativity standpoint to get these outcomes. When was the last time you heard of a president operating that way? And it's honestly because they weren't executives in the only word that comes to mind is normal. They weren't executives in a typical sense. It's always been in terms of politics, in terms of operating a government where there's only spend involved. There's not value creation necessarily tied to it, or the the threat of going under, going bankrupt, making the wrong calls on things, right? Or really advocating hard for certain things and driving to those outcomes. So I mean, those things make a difference here, and there's glimpses of it there. And as he started to speak to that, reporters just jumped in all over him because to me, I think it seems. Let's see what their questions are, but it seems counter and contrary to what you would typically see with other presidents or other political leaders, that they want to have that command and control structure. They don't want to allow people to kind of drift too far from what the talking points are. And then at that point, like, who do you have working for you? Just a bunch of people that are reading off of a script. What good is that? You might as well outsource that. You know what I mean? Like, why even try to get the best of the best at that point? There you go. So, I mean, if you want some reinforcement, again, so you see how he's standing proud here, right? I don't know if you can see my mouse here, kind of. The expression on, I don't know this gentleman's name, but the expression on his face, the gentleman who's been tasked with this negotiation or kind of pushing this stuff forward, he's standing confident, he's standing proud because he's got his leader to back him up. He's made some statements, made some assertions, shown discretion as to the level at which he will kind of describe things. And Trump steps in and kind of reinforces it. And so, I mean, that's a perfect demonstration of leadership right there. The pat on the back just kind of, I mean, that's just like, I don't know, typical Trump. That's he gave him the signal, like, all right, we're done. We got to move on to the next topic, right? Let's take a moment to acknowledge the presence of the big troll gang um, in the house. Thank you for joining. Like and subscribe. One thing I'm still puzzled about is I think it was mentioned very early on in the live stream chat, the approval of so many judges. These are, I believe, they're lifetime appointments. And again, you look at how much has been done November through December till now. How much has been done in this very, tight, let's say, 60-day period versus how much has been done, I don't know, in the 3.5 years beforehand. What took them so long? I mean, if these were really outcomes they were after, why did they wait till the 11th hour to move forward with these things? I think it's really strange. Well, I mean, there's simple answers to that, just ineffective and no real commitment to action at any point. But yeah, I mean, the other example of this is the executive orders that were signed once the border became a big issue during the election. This was February, March timeframe of last year. And then they just waited a month or two and then started touting, the incredible reduction in the numbers and how everything was like looking great and trying to take credit for things. But for the vast majority of their tenure was completely the opposite. And then, of course, you get, post-election and all of that is undone. So all of that's undone, causing that problem to, get worse. Commitments are made to provide massive amounts of foreign aid, tens of billions of dollars. I mean, pardons are all, let's see what the total turns out to be, right? Some of the pardons are rolling. The judge is another one that's astronomical in what's being kind of pushed through. But all of this activity right at the 11th hour, I mean, was this a group of massive procrastinators? Was it really just because they're kind of do nothing type of individuals, but like at this level of scale? I mean, what gives at that point? Because you think their party would demand some outcomes from them, but it's all 11th hour stuff at this point. Which again, some of it's petty, like the decision to eliminate or bring to an end offshore drilling, across most of the U.S.'s coastlines. A lot of it's just, petty and obstructive actions that are being taken. Nothing that's really going to be, permanent. Oops, sorry. Just pulled up some data. The oil and gas production question. Let me switch over to the layout. Is this right? It doesn't show 24, so 24 might be a little bit higher. Oh, it doesn't have. So the AI only has data through the end of 23. But I mean, the trend holds though. Let me bring this up real quick. Oh, small. Let me see if I could make that a little bit bigger. Hopefully you could see that. So one column, this is all for the United States. The second column there is daily oil production, consumption listed out on the other side of that. And you could kind of see, right, from 14 to 16, it was, kind of like a peak and then a fall. The reason for this is that, you need to do a good bit of capital investment, do new exploration and stuff. So when we hit like a down cycle, that type of event happens where, price of oil crashes. There's not as much investment that happens. And so many years out into the future, there will be a dip because there was an investment that happened to bring new reserves online or set up new reserves to be in the pipeline. That may have been what's going on there. It's a little bit different now with how the shale operations work, in the Permian, Delaware basins. But in any case, you can kind of see the trend here, right? 8.7 million, 14 steadily going up, and by 23 hitting 12.9. And of course, I'm assuming that it's even higher. And this is a daily production, right? 12.9 million barrels daily. But you look on the other side here, and how much are we consuming on a daily basis? Close to 19. And you can see that fluctuated a little bit. It was, it ticked up a little bit and it's come down. So there's still a gap here in terms of how much we need to import. We can close that gap. That's not a problem. It's just providing the opportunity for the infrastructure to come together to allow that to happen, which involves pipelines. It involves, terminals, refineries, as was mentioned earlier in the live. There's 2 of them, evidently in California, that are subject to being, shut off. I don't know what the driver is on consumption and why that's kind of tapered off there, right? See, 19.1 million peaked around 2017, or no, sorry, peaked around 19. So it looks like it was slowly going up until 19. I'm assuming that because of COVID, 20 was impacted pretty significantly on the daily consumption. Well, it's 1.7 million barrels, slowly ticking back up. But why it's taken this many years for it to come back up, I don't know. I don't know the dynamics of that, but clearly that's COVID impact that's bringing it down there. Canada, Venezuela, Mexico. And if you're looking at BTK, the importers that we, or the folks that we do import from, that is, a healthy list of it there. And then it's also Saudi Arabia, of course. A lot of our refineries right now are set up to process, sour crude, which is heavy in sulfur, that comes out of Saudi Arabia. Most of Gulf of Mexico and what comes out of the Permian is sweet, which is lower in sulfur content, that you would actually have to refactor a lot of, the processing units across refineries to, use that crude. But because of regulation, because of uncertainty, things have stayed status quo. So even like not having as much sulfur content in what's being processed would be beneficial for the environment, right? And I know there's a lot of other factors go into it, but we're just not able to fully leverage what we can produce at this point for a variety of reasons. Cheap energy is why the U.S. is the biggest economy. Consumption. Yeah, and so those terminals that are being, or excuse me, the LNG plants that are being built out in Louisiana, hopefully a lot of that stuff can get online and we can start shipping that stuff out to Europe and displace what it may be getting, from other not so friendly countries, but remains to be seen. Anyway, interesting though. You look at 8.7 to 12. I mean, was that like a 50% ish increase? Is that for? I mean, probably just under 50% there. That's a pretty significant uptick if you just think about it. In what, 10 years, the daily production has increased that much. I mean, you think what would happen in another 10 years? Would this 12 catch up to the demand in 10 years if we're still at that same pace? It gets more complicated because of the processing that we talked about just a second ago, but it's not out of the question. So, another thing to observe here: how long has Trump been going now, answering questions from the media? Right, um, every single event that Biden has had, it's been scripted. There's been specific individuals that he's called on a number of occasions. Looking back, in fact, maybe I need to add that to my best of Biden moments. He's had a card in his hand where he looks at it, says a name, says the publication or the media outlet that the person's from. And on a few times he said, "Oh, who's on the list? I don't want to get in trouble." Because the interns gave him a list of people to call, and he's gonna be on their naughty list if he doesn't follow through on it. But there's been a number of instances like that where everything was so controlled. But you look at Trump, and he just, he's sets his own schedule, sets his own time, answers what he wants. He's in control. The same challenge that Biden had, Kamala also demonstrated, not just in the media, coverage that she would get, or excuse me, the questions she would answer from the media, but also in the timing of some of the talks she would give. So, for example, I attended a rally out in Houston, which you could check out that video. I've got, there's some crazy stuff that went down there. You could check out that video. Maybe I'll put a link in the chat, but she spoke very briefly, like 15 minutes, right? And there was this rally that was going on for hours and hours. They brought Willie Nelson up there, and, played music. There was all these other politicians that kind of came in there, guest speakers, and Beyonce introed her. Of course, she spoke for 5 minutes and evidently was paid millions of dollars for it. But all these people and all this lead up, and she was just there for like 15 minutes, and that was that. So it's not just in kind of taking questions from the media; it's also in the time that they're given to kind of deliver their scripted speeches. Why is that limited? Hey, BTK, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate the super thank you on that. Let me see. Hippo character. It's funny on I, I've got two chats going. One that's through the streaming provider, and when there's an image associated with it, it describes the image. It doesn't like play it because it can't stream it. So it says here like the hippo character's head pops out of water, surrounded by other hippo squad. So it's like describing the picture to me, and then I have to go over to YouTube to actually see it. So I appreciate it, BTK. Thank you for that. And I think what he's describing is important, and the media doesn't take that next step in understanding why this is important. It's described as being something selfish, right? Like, oh, like we're not as giving. We don't want to help other people out. We're such a rich country. But it's like, oh, hold on a second. How are folks here actually doing? Right? Let's take a minute and think about that. But what Trump is describing goes way back to the earlier discussion on just folks in government, generally speaking, do not have a mindset of efficiency or doing things effectively. They'll accept any bid that's given to them by a company, the $10,000 hammer, so forth. And so these scenarios he's outlining, the aid that's given Canada, as he's describing here, or the trade gaps, they're allowed to persist, and there's no expected return, or there's no thinking in terms of how do we uh, how do we leverage those investments to improve something for the United States. And it may not always be monetary. It could be, you know, there could be something else associated with it, but just some outcome. And there is none in so many of these cases. Everyone needs a teleprompter. I do pretty good with the talk. Well, you know what it is. If I'm at work giving a talk, I've got my notes on the screen. That everybody does need a teleprompter, to be honest. But yeah, your comment earlier, Obama was, I didn't agree with a lot of his stuff, but exceptional politician, delivery, everything was off the charts. I mean, the level of skill he had, I couldn't tell you another individual that's on par with him. It would have to be one of the motivational speakers that are out there, right? That can speak with such passion and, um, a connection with the audience. It was infectious, and that's one of the qualities. And it's like what Trump was talking about earlier. They need to have people that can speak well. They can, in addition to just being able to negotiate, people that can connect and relate to others. And Obama was off the charts in that respect. Even though I don't agree with just about most of his stuff, I have to acknowledge that. That is a good point. I mean, how elegantly you can dance with the language that you just put out there is one thing, but for folks to actually pause and process what was just kind of like said to them and just getting instead of just getting wrapped up in the feeling of it, that's a whole other story. So yeah, that. But when you can deliver messages really well, as Obama did, uh, for the lion's share of people, it's just they don't catch that, right? I should be more specific. They don't catch it, or maybe they're aligned with it, and it just reinforces things for them, right? It's not that everybody's completely, um, get the wool over their eyes. Maybe some of the folks, are all in on whatever's being discussed. Again, another clear example of it. I mean, what's the outcome that we're achieving there? Um, people often will say it's done out of a humanitarian aid. You got to be real about it, though. How much of that is actually benefiting the populace? It's pretty clear that the folks there are already very desperate, and they're not getting the aid that's intended to be for them. And so, what alternative do you have? You can't continue supporting what's going on out there. But for years and years, that's happened, and it's happened not just in one or two instances, but it happens hundreds and hundreds of times, and you multiply that across billions and billions of dollars, and it's astronomical. So imagine if a lot of that got right sized or eliminated altogether, what that would mean in terms of you know taxes that we get hit with, fees, and I'm saying from the government, or just the quality of service that the government can provide us. I don't remember who it was. I think it was a comedian, but they talked about the DMV and how we dread going there. But what's really sad is that's a look behind the curtains as to how the government actually operates in terms of efficiency. So I mean, it's shocking to think of that operation, and then it applied towards billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. All right. So again, another reporter, you could see the intensity on her face, how quickly she's delivering this question. She's trying to have another gotcha moment, maybe make a name for herself, get a soundbite, put it on her TikTok, do a dance to it, who knows? But both things can be true at the same time. He has an intent to improve pricing, alleviate some of the pressures of inflation. Might take some effort to think through the best ways of doing that, and it's not something easily done. I mean, if it was easy, I'd imagine that Harrison Biden would have pushed the easy button already. And you know, why would they make life for themselves from a political standpoint any more difficult than it has to be? So it's not an easy thing to do. He has an intention to do it, and it's trying to be kind of framed in a way that he's being hypocritical. Not getting the audio. Hang on. Let me undo it and then redo it. One sec, y'all.
Inflation was one of the reasons I won, but I think the biggest reason I won was the fact that they are allowing prisoners to come into our country. They released their prisoners, their murderers. Thousands of murderers are now walking around the streets of our cities and farmland all over. Murders, people that have killed. Many, 32% have killed more than one person. They released them from their jails, their prisons, and their mental institutions and insane asylums into our country. I believe that's the reason we got such a large vote. All right, maybe one or two more questions. Yeah, please, go ahead. Go ahead, you go.
Sir, can you, President Carter is laying in state today in Washington. You had some harsh words for him about the Panama Canal. Is there any disconnect there? Do you feel a little bit bad about doing that on this day?
No, I liked him as a man. I disagreed with his policy. So, hey, he thought giving away the Panama Canal was a good thing. I think it cost him the election. That and the hostages. I actually think that was a bigger factor because that's a deal that just should not have been made. But again, this was a question that was asked of me. I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to bring up the Panama Canal because of Jimmy Carter's death. But people don't bring it up. But you and other people have asked me about it. No, it's a deal that I was very strongly against. I was a young guy when this took place, but just why would we spend all of that money, lose 38,000 people to malaria, the mosquito? They were dying. It was horrible what was happening. They paid them 4 times more than they would make in the United States, but they knew they were going to go over there and die. And they died in the jungles of malaria. There was nothing we could do to stop it. 38 times. And then we gave it away for $1.
Getting your agenda through Congress, you appeared to open the door in your radio interview yesterday for a 2-bill approach. Is it still your preference for one big, beautiful bill, as you have said?
Well, I like one big, beautiful bill, and I always have, I always will. But if 2 is more certain, it does go a little bit quicker because you can do the immigration stuff early. Now, you have to understand, for immigration and for the wall, we won the case on the wall. They tried to sell the wall for 5 cents on the dollar, by the way. And we had, fortunately, a judge that stopped that. But they were already
That's another good example. When I mentioned that there has been so much action taken over the last 60 days, and where was all this in the past 3.5 years, 3.5 plus years? Why has there been such an acceleration? Pettiness, trying to just save some political face. In the case of the steel that's just been sitting, being sold for pennies on the dollar, that's an example of pettiness, clearly, to me. I don't think there's any other way that you can characterize it. But at the end of the day, the political pettiness, what I don't think is commonly recognized or acknowledged is Trump, if it had gotten fully sold out there, because some of it did get shipped away, it needs to be repurchased, and so the government's paid for it twice, and where do they get that money from? Right, it's coming out of tax revenue, or it may be printed, because the budget always has to balance, and it's either more revenue taken in or they print. And of course, the approach on printing is what modern monetary theory wants to do. Actually, hang on. Let me make sure I'm not. One sec. Let me get my little AI buddy up here. Hey, can you give my live stream viewers a synopsis of modern monetary theory?
Sure, Masood. Modern monetary theory, MMT, argues that countries that control their own currencies can never run out of money the way businesses or individuals can, and that government spending should focus on achieving full employment and public purpose. Deficits aren't inherently bad in this view as long as they don't lead to inflation.
How do you combat inflation if the deficits do lead to inflation in this particular model?
In MMT, governments can combat inflation through various tools like reducing public spending, raising taxes to absorb excess money in the economy, or adjusting interest rates. The goal is to manage demand and keep it in line with the economy's productive capacity.
What are some gaps in modern monetary theory? Go ahead.
Critics of MMT point out gaps like oversimplifying the relationship between government spending and inflation. They argue it underestimates the risks of currency devaluation and ignores the potential for political misuse of money creation, which could lead to economic instability.
Is this what's being applied in the European Union?
No, the European Union doesn't fully apply MMT. The EU has strict fiscal rules, like the Stability and Growth Pact, which limit deficits and debt levels among member states, emphasizing balanced budgets rather than MMT principles.
Is there any country in the world where MMT is fully applied?
No country fully applies MMT. Some aspects, like increased government spending without immediate concern for deficits, have been seen in response to economic crises, but no country has adopted MMT as official policy. Most governments still rely on traditional economic principles.
Let's see if it can look up the answer on this one. I'm always impressed with how quickly it gives me a response, and then I have to like think about it. Like, did you really look up that info that quickly? But let me see if it has the answer to this one. How many of the most recent, well, let's say how many of the Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize winners in economics over the past 20 years have been proponents of MMT?
In the past 20 years, no Nobel laureates in economics have been prominent proponents of modern monetary theory. Most laureates tend to follow more traditional economic theories.
Okay, that's interesting because I read articles that said otherwise. So again, depending on what the AI thinks is an authoritative source, you have to kind of balance that out. It can help you get information more quickly, but it's not always 100% accurate, right? Yeah, she could probably debate Yellen, right? Let's see. I mean, she'd probably like stump her and just kind of like, I don't know. Like, that'd be pretty good. But all right, let's get Senor Trump back up here.
Guarding the wall. And 5 cents in the dollar. And you know what they were doing? They were calling us up and saying, we'll sell it back to you at 200 cents. In other words, double what we paid for it. So they were going to buy it from this guy for 5 cents in the dollar. They were making deals.
Yeah, you know, it's That's an interesting point. Forensic accountant. When I look at it, who? All right, I'm gonna have to go back to my AI. Hang on a second. I gotta find out who asked. Hey, who came up with the name trickle down economics?
Policies.
I'm sorry, I didn't have you. I
No
didn't have you
worries.
visible. Can you repeat that for the live stream viewers?
Of course, Masood. The term trickle-down economics was popularized by critics, particularly during the Reagan administration in the 1980s. It's used to describe supply-side economic policies.
So critics were the ones that gave it the trickle down term. Okay, one more question for it. Who offered the idea that the purpose or the intent of trickle down economics, or the I guess the core principle, was that wealthy folks acted out of benevolence to share money and trickle it down to the poor?
The idea behind trickle-down economics is that benefits for the wealthy, like tax cuts or business incentives, will eventually trickle down to everyone else in the form of job creation, higher wages, and economic growth. It's not so much about the wealthy acting out of benevolence, but rather that their increased prosperity is believed to naturally benefit the broader economy.
Okay, so the terming of it as being trickle down, some of the pieces of it were, to me, just kind of framed in a way that'd be negative. It's not an absolute. There's elements of it that, if you hear Reagan speak of, when they say that, like, hey, if you raise corporate taxes, that cost is eventually going to get passed on to the consumer. I do tend to agree with that, because most of these corporations that are public have to meet margin targets for their shareholders, or the company won't be as valuable. It won't be able to pay their dividend. It won't be able to buy back stock, do all kinds of stuff. It won't have the same growth rate, and eventually the valuation of the stock is not going to be the same. So they would have to try to pass that on to the consumer, or get more efficient and cut jobs and so forth to maintain that margin or grow it. And so that's the part of, the term Reagan stuff is trickle down, but the acknowledgement that, hey, raising corporate taxes is not really the end all solution. I mean, that's the part that I kind of anchor on. Because to me, it's not like individuals that are necessarily at the top. It's these legal entities in the forms of mass employers, right? All the corporations and so forth. All right, very nice. Very nice. Let's get back to Trump.
Fortunately, we had a very smart judge that stopped it cold. I think he called for an investigation too, and he should. But think of it. They were selling the wall that was exactly the wall that the Border Patrol wanted. That was designed by them. Steel, concrete, rebar, exactly as they want. Very, very heavy steel, very powerful steel, hard to cut. Very, very heavy, 7,000-pound concrete, which is a very strong concrete. Everything was top of the line. Very expensive. Would be double what we paid for it then, 6 years ago. But let me just tell you, We're selling it for 5 cents on the dollar to people, and those people were calling us, asking us to pay them 200 cents because it's a good deal because we can have it immediately. And you know what immediately is? Just leave it in place. No, the papers haven't written that, though. You know, that deal is like all the other things that these people do. These people either hate our country or they're very stupid. And I don't believe they're stupid because nobody can cheat on elections like they cheat and be stupid. They either hate our country or they're stupid. So remember what I said, because nobody wants to report it. They were selling the wall for 5 cents on the dollar and trying to resell it back to us for 200 cents or less, but for 200 cents on the dollar. That's a nice return.
Meta today announced that it will stop putting fact checks on posts on its website. And Meta said today it would stop putting fact checks on its website and instead allow community.
Yeah, well, I watched their news conference, and I thought it was a very good news conference. I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook. I think they've come a long way. I watched it. The man was very impressive. I watched it. Actually, I watched it on Fox. I'm not allowed to say that. Say it?
Do you think he's directly responding to the threats that you have made to him in the past? With
Probably. Yeah, probably.
I mean, like,
the last time you were
isn't that something they're like trying to have another gotcha moment, right? And see if he dances around it, and they're like, "Oh, we nailed you," and he just acknowledges it, like, "Yeah." And probably set him straight. He's responding to what I've said in the past.
You were asked a question about the U.S. possibly launching a preemptive strike on Iran. You said you wouldn't answer that question.
On who?
Obviously, on Iran. The U.S. launching a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities.
And I said, I don't talk about it. It's a military strategy.
But it is a legitimate question. It's something
Well, it's not really, because only a stupid person would answer it. Look, it's a military strategy, and I'm not answering your questions on military strategy. All right, one more. Brian, go ahead. Brian.
Could you give us a preview of what you might be talking to leaders of Congress who are expected to come here in the next couple of days? And you've got a very supportive Congress behind you.
Yeah, they're great. So we have a wonderful Republican Congress. We have a leader that I have a lot of confidence in. I think he's going to be hopefully a great leader, a great speaker. And we have a leader, by the way, in the Senate I think has been great. John Thune has been doing a fantastic job. But it goes through the House first. And the question is whether or not we do the two bills or one bill. And, you know, look, I can live either way. I like the idea of the one big bill, but I can live either way. But they'll be coming down. The senators also will be coming down. And then ultimately we'll be meeting in the White House in a few weeks. But right now this is the winter season. You know, they sort of call this the winter White House. It was built, I don't know if you know this, Marjorie Meriwether Post and E.F. Hutton built this. It was the greatest of all the estates in our country. And I saved it, and I got a lot of credit for saving it. Most of these big, great houses have been knocked down in Palm Beach, just about all of them, actually. And they, you know, you'd build 10 mansions on one site, but we saved it. But this was built as the Southern White House, and she gave it to the government. And, by the way, Jimmy Carter gave it back. He said it's too expensive for the United States. So I didn't realize that.
Real quick, I was just told.
Actually, Jimmy Carter, Nixon was through Watergate. He came down. Nixon came here once. And he thought it was incredible, but he had a thing called Watergate, if anybody remembers that. And so he had other things on his mind, to put it mildly. And Jimmy Carter felt that it was too extravagant for the country. So fortunately for me, he gave it back to the foundation, and I bought it from the foundation.
On reconciliation, some Republicans saying in trade for a massive bill that you and they share the interest in, they want to see big spending cuts. Do you agree with that? And
Well, I'm okay with spending cuts. I like spending cuts. Just, I'm on the record for spending cuts. And the debt ceiling was given to us. It shouldn't have been, but it was put in our lap. And what I want in terms of debt ceiling isn't the ceiling. I just don't want to see a default. That's all I want. I never talked about spending more money necessarily than all I want to see is no default. Because nobody knows what would happen if there was a default. It could be 1929 and it could be nothing. But that was put into our lap, and it shouldn't have been, but it was. And
again, another thing that, another gift, right, that's happened over the last 60 days or so, that they've worked towards, not coming to agreements, not keeping things afloat. causing more expenditures by the government for this deal that was for the southern border, rescinding the border policies or executive orders that were put in place in February, March of this year. A lot of things have moved in the last 60 days. A lot. And I can only see that as being petty and obstructionist.
And so we'll handle it. But debt ceiling is not about raising a lot of money. It's really just about extending it. I just want to see an extension.
Sir, on immigration, how much can you do by executive order? Are you planning to do on executive order when it comes to immigration? And how much do you want Congress to tackle this issue? And also on day one,
well, I had the safest border in the history of our country by far. You remember the famous chart that I brought down. I love that chart very much for a lot of reasons. But I have the safest border by far in the history of our country. And when I took it over, it was a mess. Nothing like it is now. This is 10 times worse. I got elected because of the border the first time. And I think I got elected largely because of the border the third time. And the second time I did equally well. Well, not as well as the last time, but I did very well. And I will say, this was too big to rig. You know the expression? Too big to rig. They couldn't do it. They tried, but they couldn't do it. I didn't get very much from Congress at all. I just said that we're being invaded, and I took the money out of the military. Much of the wall, I built over 500 miles of wall. Much of that wall was built through money that I put into the military. We took it out because we couldn't get things from Congress in those days, and we took it out. And that wall was built largely with money coming from the military. So, very simple. I went to the military, I said, our country is being invaded by very similar, nothing like what's invading our country now. They weren't releasing prisons into our country, and they weren't releasing mental institutions in, but some bad dudes were coming in, right? And I said, our country is being invaded. And I took that money largely from the military. I was sued 9 times by the Democrats in Congress, and I won all those suits. And we ended up building 571 miles of wall. Once that wall was built, they start going around it. So we're going to add another 200. That would have been up in 3 weeks. And then we had a very unfortunate election result. And they said, we don't want to put it up. We'll sell it. And they started selling it for 5 cents on the dollar. What a second. So we'll do this again. I just want to thank everybody very much. I'm just telling you, this will be the golden age of America. This is the golden age of America. We're going to have a great country again. We're a country right now under siege. We have so many different problems, and nobody respects us overseas, but now they do. The Italian prime minister, as you know, came here the other night, just flew in and flew out. She wanted to see me. And great respect is being shown when I went to the cathedral in France. Great respect was shown by the prime minister, the president, by everybody. France was...
It's an interesting comment, forensic accountant. And I saw your comment earlier, the tax cuts are government spending. Is anyone willing to forego the tax cuts to bring down the deficit? The ratio of debt to GDP that we're at, I think I align with how Jeff Bezos characterized it, is that we're no longer in a position to take that approach. We have to put investments in place and get the economy in a place to grow us out of this. And it's not to say that we don't work towards reducing spending. We definitely have to. But we have to aim towards growing the economy to get us out of this. Otherwise, it would require, much more significant level of austerity that I don't think people are prepared to take on. How that unfolds, I don't know. I don't have the answer to it, but I don't think that as inflation has impacted people, freeing up more of their money, and they got to do it in the right way. Freeing up more of their money is probably the right way to go about it. Can't let what's in place right now expire. And I always use the $30,000 a year, couple with 2 kids as an example, because effectively none of their money is subject to taxation. The standard deduction right now stands at about $29,500-ish. So about 500 of that is subject to tax, right? But once you get the child tax credit in there, earned income credit, so forth, other things that might be out there, it's gone. They'll get money back. But as soon as if the Trump tax cuts were expired, that same couple, the standard deduction would then drop immediately to about 15,000. So all of a sudden, overnight, when they used to only have 500 subject to taxation, now 15,000 is subject to taxation, and the child tax credit drops from 2,000 per child to 1,000. So that's like a massive, massive impact to folks that are already trying to cope with higher grocery prices and everything. So at a very minimum, I can't see a good answer being rescinding those tax cuts. But is there an opportunity to make it targeted to where it helps people even further in some way? I don't know. Someone needs to do some calculus on that.
And by the way, I have to say they did a great job in the cathedral. But great respect is being shown to our country again. And we have a great country, but we have to run it properly. It's going to be run properly. We want to get back those hostages for Israel and for us. You know, we do have people that are hostages being held. And I'll just say it again. If this deal's not done with the people representing our nation, by the time I get to office, all hell is going to break out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ukraine-Russia war before you take office. Can you clarify what you mean by military force in the Panama Canal?
All right, very nice. Okay, so that was Trump's second acceptance speech that he just gave. Kamala gave a third concession speech. How long is this one? Did this one go for a while? Hang on a sec, guys. Let me get this pulled up. How long did this one go? Okay, so yeah, I didn't think it was very long. Is this just a clip or is this the full? Okay, Vice President Harris speaks after Electoral College vote count. All right, let me share this. And I'll maximize the screen. This is crazy. I had to check if the timing was right. Oh, didn't share. Hold on. One sec. Come on. Let's get it up there. Okay. So Trump spoke for, well over an hour in his second acceptance speech. Kamala's second concession speech, 1 minute, 29 seconds. And 5 seconds have gone by of right now, just her walking in. But let's see how this goes.
Very important day, and it was about what should be the norm and what the American people should be able to take for granted, which is that one of the most important pillars of our democracy is that there will be a peaceful transfer of power. And today I did what I have done my entire career, which is take seriously the oath that I have taken many times to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which included today performing my constitutional duties to ensure that the people of America, the voters of America, will have their votes counted, that those votes matter, and that they will determine then the outcome of an election. I do believe very strongly that America's democracy is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. Every single person, their willingness.
All right. So in her prior to concession speeches, the word fight showed up, at least 2.5 dozen times, which is a lot considering that, each one of the speeches was, I don't know, like 15, 20 minutes long. So like once every minute and a half, you mention something that you're fighting about. And to me, this is the endless game, the infinite game for Democrats, Kamala in particular. That term's been used in business quite a bit, that you don't just work towards a singular accomplishment, call it a day. You're always striving to do better. It's not really the case with what she's talking about. The infinite game here is there's always something I'm struggling with, I'm fighting with. There's never a state at which there's no longer a need to fight on a given issue. Identity politics, race, that stuff is always something that, or gender, you name it, from an identity standpoint, there's always a fight and there's always a struggle, and there's not an acknowledgement that things are like in a pretty good state. And generally speaking, if something awry comes up, like 99.9% of people will stand up and call it out. But there's always a fight, and it creates this mindset of, I always have this struggle that I'm dealing with. I'm always being kind of held back. I'm being taken advantage of. You go down the list of things there, and then she offers herself up, or the party, to say that we're the ones that are here to fight on your behalf because, on your own, you're too little. You can't do it. You need me to come do this for you. And then from there, in my mind, I'm connecting the general narcissism of, I know how to spend your money for you better than you do, which then hits the tax topic that we were hitting earlier. So anyway, every time she speaks, there's always something to fight about, right? All right. So she's got about 20 more seconds to go here, or 25 seconds more. I'll let her complete her thought.
To fight for and respect the importance of our democracy. Otherwise, it is very fragile, and it will not be able to withstand moments of crisis. And today, America's democracy stood.
Madam Vice President, what's next for you? What's next for you?
That's it. I mean, I heard what's next for you as being one of the reported questions, but that was it. And this happened right after they certified the Electoral College vote tally. This was, clearly there's press here in this room that she walked into. And I don't know if there was some pre-commitment for her to come out and take questions or to make some sort of remarks, but extremely brief. And now she's off to a worldwide trip to meet with a bunch of folks. To what end? Why is she taking this visit now? It's going to cost millions of dollars. Why is she taking this trip now? Is she really going to make commitments on behalf of the government that are going to be almost instantly undone? Cause these countries also to spend millions of dollars to, host her? Because it's not just our expenditures for security and travel, and you go down the list of entourage, but also those countries to, host foreign dignitaries, particularly the United States. I'm sure we have quite a bit of, requirements and demands around it. So, why take this trip at this point? It's honestly, it's fruitless. It's meaningless. I don't know. Is it just for fun? Who knows? Let me just double check the comments back here. Suddenly debt is acceptable. So I didn't like the idea of the debt ceiling being raised. The way he characterized it, though, he has concerns over default. I'm adding an additional line here because he does not trust Congress to actually get something done in a timely fashion. That makes sense to me, and it is a pretty straightforward and simple answer. The part that I'm kind of adding on is the lack of confidence in Congress to get things done. acknowledging that, well, the entire House and Senate are Republican at this point. Well, not the entire House, but they have majorities. Trump's experience from 2016, though, I think has taught him otherwise, that there's just enough of the old guard and the Republican Party still around that he can't count on them. And so that's why that's important to him. I mean, that's at least my analysis and takeaway from it. Otherwise, yeah, I feel very uncomfortable with the idea of continuously or endlessly increasing the debt ceiling. Ted says government spending caused inflation. Correct. Some forensic accountant here. It's COVID that caused inflation. We panicked, overbought, overpaid, and businesses took advantage. Both things are true at the same time. Both comments are true at the exact same time, I think. Democrats, let's throw money at it. Your money. I think that's been the Democrat approach for many, many years, decades upon decades upon decades. And Weekend, I appreciate your remark earlier of liking the cow. And anybody else that's on live right now, if you like it, give it a like. Had about 9,000 people come through so far and only 14 likes. So my ego is hurt a little bit. Let's see. The can's being kicked down the road and the next generation will suffer consequences. Government spending is out of control, enabled by the Federal Reserve. Income tax isn't even funding the government. 100% correct. In fact, the Social Security tax, the revenue that was brought in for that is no longer sufficient to pay out the benefit. There was a point in time during the 2000 election, Al Gore famously would say that he wanted to put Social Security in a lockbox and keep it safe, but not possible at this point because there's no surplus to keep safe. He didn't want the idea at that point in time was he didn't want it to, get pushed into, didn't want to get pushed into some general fund and get appropriated towards other things. Better to shore up the system, rainy day fund, however you want to look at it. But that's no longer the case. We can't do that. We actually need more revenue if we want to continue at our current pace. And then the other alternatives, right, are, not fund, increase taxes, cut benefits, or the third alternative, which I would like to hear a little bit more about, is can we grow our way out of this from an economic standpoint to where the current tax rates are sufficient because there's just that much more growth, across the economy. Have I ever owned a business? Yes, I have. How long? Maybe about 7 years or so. Had my own small business. Fed continues to buy bonds and print money. It absolutely is, very much. Do you really think that businesses would relinquish profits to make us feel better? Nope, they will not. There's no. That's not the purpose of the capitalist system that we have in place. Everything is founded upon ownership. Shareholders, directors, so forth. So they wouldn't, and so you have to incentivize that. It goes back to the commentary that we had earlier around stock buybacks. Is there any real value out of that action? And to me, there's not a whole lot. Some of it may be acceptable if you're buying it back so that you can provide that as a benefit, provide those shares as a benefit to your staff, employees, executives, or what have you. But that's still a limited amount. You're not going to buy back $3 billion worth of shares. I mean, massive amounts that some of these companies put out there in their buyback programs. It's not what you're going to do to give back to your employees. is there some better way that we can invest that towards something useful? So if there's some way that we can discourage that behavior of issuing buybacks, I mean, I would think that'd probably be a good thing, because how else do you grow yourself out of the scenario we're in if you're not investing in new opportunities? You have to encourage that behavior, or discourage the behavior of buying, endless buybacks to a degree. Yeah, the trip's pointless. That Kamala's taking could be the last time we see her, and I'll miss her. I'm gonna miss it too, to be honest. I just have one right now, but you look at my history of shorts on YouTube and elsewhere. There's so much content that Biden has provided, as well as Harris, from the school bus to the jumbled words that Biden has, to falling upstairs. You go down the list, it's just endless content. I don't know if we'll ever find somebody that, or a pair that can give you that much content on their own. Live in our means. Our own government can't stick to a budget. You've audited businesses. Yeah, the only time I was subject to audit was during the Obama administration, and they kind of cracked down on the adoption credit. We did do an adoption, and I mean, the level of scrutiny was absurd, to be honest. And here's the funny thing, like, I actually had a direct line to talk to the IRS, because there was a back and forth, and I had to send them documents and so forth. And it came down to them going through every single line item that our attorneys had indicated for our charges, like an hour by hour account of what they did. And they literally tallied up a good number of hours for a few $1,000s that they said, okay, well, this work that they did is unrelated to the adoption, even though they were making phone calls to the agency, to the courts, to other places on our behalf. Somehow they were deemed not to be related to the adoption, and they tried to remove that as part of the credit that we're given. And I'm scratching my head. It's like, what are you talking about? So anyway, just reminded me of that when you mentioned the audit. I'm sure it was not that kind of audit. Don't trust. Yep. I mean, that's the scheme. Print and buy back the bonds endlessly. That needs to stop. The AI didn't recognize it, but that is, in effect, modern monetary policy. And there are very well-known, prominent economists that are proponents of it, that were standing behind Biden and Harris. And I honestly, from the politician standpoint, I don't know if there's a bit of naiveness around this, or they're intentionally leveraging the theory and the support that's given to it in order to accomplish some of their end goals. And like what was being said earlier, just passing the buck or kicking the can down the road to future generations who, well, honestly, that's been said for a long time, that the can's been kicked down the road, but at some point that can's going to be like full of concrete, and it won't budge. Three sets of books. Oh, okay, cool, nice. Internal theft, corruption. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's crazy. I can go into too much detail, but I always, I go to a new space, a new group, or whatever. I always start with the plans, the books, because, I mean, the numbers are the numbers, period. And so you can start there to kind of understand where your footprint is, more or less. and you can, use that as a foundation or a basis. Of course, I'm always looking to cut costs, but anyway, missed the bike shop just up the street. COVID closed it down. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that closed down. There's a lot of, I don't know if y'all, depending on where you're at, there's a company that it was soup plantation, depending on if you're in the northern area states or out west. In the south, it was called Sweet Tomatoes. That company went bankrupt like overnight, but it was like the best place. It was like they had soups, they had salad. It was like a big soup and salad kind of place. Anyway, a lot of unfortunate closures. Had a business for 26 years and sold it 3 years ago because of Yep. And it's hard, right? And then you're trying to keep track of, wage increases, and how does that offset? Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to, meet all of, I don't want to call these commitments, but kind of deal with all these increases around the board, you start eroding your own profits and eroding your own livelihood. It's extremely tough. Governors close things down, not an invisible bug. You can always settle for lower profit margins. The Arizona Tea Company, I think they took that approach. But the thing is, like, it's like relative, right? They're on a pretty big scale. I mean, it's a privately owned company, but their scale is massive to where, if they lose a couple % on margin, they're still bringing in tens of millions of dollars, and it's a privately owned company. And, ownership can make a decision like, that's all right. I'll make $5 million less this year. I mean, making that up. But when it's at a lower scale and, the business brings 150,000 home, and all of a sudden, you got to knock off like 10,000, 5,000, whatever it might be, it starts to be very significant at that point. Yeah, it keeps printing. It's late and people are saying they're sleeping. Yeah, I'm on my way there. Taxing Social Security. Yeah, they need to not tax Social Security. Absolutely right. All right, guys. I appreciate everything. Appreciate the super chat that came through. And we've had about 9,300 people come through so far, but it was a little bit kind of slow, probably because of the late hour. But like and subscribe. This was Political ASMR number 27. We're on our way to 100, pretty close to it. I appreciate you guys joining in. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and the rest of your week. Be back again soon. And 2 things I've got coming up, of course, I'll be covering Inauguration Day as we get going here. But I don't know if the sentencing's still happening or not on Friday. So another thing that's coming up that might be of interest. But all right, y'all. I'm going to hit the button here in just a second and get the theme song going to close things out, but appreciate it.
Darkness falls, truth emerges, political cow unveils the lies. Behind the screen, wisdom surges, lighting up hate with her eyes. In the shadows, secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post, cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing light. Political call, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. The beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Political cow. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. Truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized.